English language teaching. Under the covers.
Hello and welcome to ELT Under the Covers ELT React, where we teachers look at the good, the bad, of the ugly of the teaching clips on the internet, and we give our expert opinions. But first, introductions. I'm Neil of Team Teacher.
Hello everybody, it's Professor Rich.
So Rich, we've looked at PPP, presentation, practice, production, methodology, and we're doing a little bit more deep dive and watching a full class of a PPP demonstration. Thoughts?
PPP, what can you say? It's old school, isn't it? It's kind of like, it's like the Grandmaster Flash of hip hop.
Yeah.
It's something that everyone relies on most of the time. It's probably the most popular sort of go-to in terms of communicative language teaching. From some corners, it gets heavily criticized for being sort of a bit old school, and you know, we've got new ways of doing it now. We've got redefinitions of what PPP means, like ESA, which I think that you're quite keen on ESA, right?
I do like ESA, and
engage, study, activate.
Yeah, from our Lord Harmer, and I really like it. I really like ESA, but I don't feel it's that dissimilar to PPP. If you are wanting to know more about ESA, remember to subscribe, because we do have an ESA methodology and React video, so we kind of do a bit more of a deep dive into that. But PPP, I kind of, the analogy for me is it's like an inbuilt code in the ELT universe, in a way. You know, in the same way that we think of a story, that there's a start, middle, and end. It kind of feels like PPP is the story of English language teaching. You know, they've got the presentation, the start, the practice, the middle, and production, the end, and it's kind of like almost like a trope when you see it in a class. And some people do it well, some people don't do it well, and I think a lot of criticism for it comes from the fact that it is just a structure, and communication. Although language is in structure, communication is often unstructured, but I'm not sure if it really is unstructured. You know, when people think of communication, it's like, oh, it's free flowing. It's just like, you know, sometimes people are using, one person's using one structure and another person's using another structure, but they're combining together in a cool, dynamic way. So I could kind of see how someone would say that it's both, communication is both structured yet unstructured. And I think kind of that's what I like about ESA, is that it can kind of emulate that a little bit better than PPP, because it's more fluid.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that ESA sort of frees up the teacher a little bit more, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does sound less rigid. Just adding just the engage part, for one, it gives you a lot of justification for what you do at the start of the class. Yeah. You know, you're going to get people into something. Yeah. You know, which is great, because PPP doesn't really capture that, does it? PPP is just like throw anything in front of them, practice it, and then give them a chance to use it. And there's many vectors of attack that PPP comes under. Like you've got the idea that the production phase, the fact that, you know, PPP doesn't necessarily emphasize that the production phase is the most important, and then you get people saying stuff like, you know, production should be 70 or 80% of your class, and the other part of it should just be sort of 10%. So we should be focusing on a kind of production-led class. Then you get the kind of task-based learning, or it's also sometimes called, deep end approach or something like that. Like you're going into the deep end of the pool. straight away,
Uh-huh.
which is the idea that you start with the production
Mm-hmm.
and then you do your language analysis and practice, and then maybe have
But
a
then
bit more
that's not PPP. Then that's more like ESA.
well, it's not PPP, but that's the point. It's the criticism of PPP,
Yeah.
isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
PBL is a reaction to PPP, and I mean, we can talk about this all day, and I think, I think we're probably both on the same page in the way that we think that a holistic approach as a teacher is probably a good way to go about it.
Holistic.
I use PPP all the time. It's not my favorite type of lesson, but it's a great go-to.
Yeah.
We're busy teachers. We can't be whipping out the kind of groundbreaking, fancy methodology stuff all the time. And PPP it's a nice go-to where you can go like, right, I want to teach them something, or even you can even start with the input, can't you? Start with the listening, start with the text.
Yeah.
Have a listen to it yourself and say, what can I get from this? And then build a lesson around that.
Yeah.
And it's normally quite an organic process. Or you can start with the production. What sort of real world communicative activity can I think of? How about going into a shop and going into a department store and asking where the, I don't know, XYZ department is, so this would be kind of a basic level class, I guess, or something down there in pre-intermediate.
Mhm.
That's your sort of production. You're going to have this role play, and
Mhm.
you can work backwards from that. You can say, well, what language are they going to need for that? And then you go back to the start and you say, well, what input would be appropriate for that? And obviously, the obvious thing that would come to my mind would be an audio of an interaction of that type, where someone goes into a department store and asks, excuse me, could you tell me where the women's lingerie section is?
We're going all Father Ted.
Our father, what are we going to? Oh, can't do my Irish accent today. Top of the morning to your father.
Do you remember that episode where they all
I do.
wandering? Oh, it's so funny. What one priest is bad enough, but five in the lodge. Anyway, yeah.
They can't find their way out of it, right?
Oh, it's amazing.
So whatever the topic is, anyway.
Yeah, it's a structure. It's a structure that, or a framework, whatever, a skeleton, scaffolding that can help a teacher organize an idea, a theme, something that they want to teach. And often it's something that's kind of like maybe a newer concept, something that they've not taught before, and or they're short in time, and they're like, well, we can't. I need this. I've got this material. I need the inbound this, and I need this and this, and here's the kind of way that I could kind of fit it in. And then from that, you can kind of go and see how that went, and then refine it as well, and it just gets add to the bank.
Yeah, I mean, moving on to the positives, I think it's well worth noting. There are still people who go out there without this framework, and the kind of the idea of teaching what happens in those sort of classes. Normally, it's sort of a mixture of teaching and practice, with very little production, occasional production sort of thrown in. So you'll get, for example, the teacher will go in and say, right, this is ed ing adjectives, and they'll write all this stuff on the board about ed ing adjectives, and maybe ask a few questions and categorize things, and then they'll start throwing worksheets at students. Worksheet, now I'll do a bit more teaching, now worksheet, now teaching, and worksheet, and then maybe give them an opportunity to talk to each other about something at the end. Then it becomes a bit, kind of mangled and not really going anywhere and lacking something. I think that's where PPP come from, was to kind of fight against that. It's like, look, teaching is not just going into a classroom and randomly throwing things up on the board and then throwing worksheets at students.
Mm-hmm.
We need something else to that. And then, funnily enough, the idea of throwing stuff on the board and throwing worksheets at students kind of came back with Teach, Test, Teach, which I don't know a lot about, actually. We'll have to do a series on that at some point, because Teach, Test, Teach is not something that I'm that familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
Probably something that I do in some way, but I don't know the methodology of it. Anyway, so PPP. So we're going to see a demo.
Yeah, so we're going to see a demo, and hopefully it's a good demo that we can praise, but it might not be a great demo, and that would be something that we can criticize, but also give constructive points tips, advice on how to improve it, so the teacher in the class and also you viewers and listeners out there can, take something from this. But always very excited, and remember, we are not solely just reacting, ha ha, oh that's bad, but we want to treat this more like an observation. So, just think of it as your friendly neighborhood monitor, peer monitor coming along and having a look at your class and saying, nice. or not.
Well,
yeah.
It's, I mean, what the word that people use, isn't it, is what's it called? Like what do you call it now? Non-graded, non-form. No, it's developmental. It's not. I just can't think of the name. But it means like it's not an assessment, is it?
Yeah.
It's not an assessment. Yeah, that's what that's what a lot of institutions say now with lesson observations. This is not us. We're not putting your job in your line or anything. We're just helping you to consider different or whatever. It always ends up being a bloody box ticket exercise, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Well, you didn't put the lesson aim on the board. Yeah, does that really help? Most of the time, students just ignore that anyway. Anyway, let's not get into the ins and outs of that. Let's just look into this.
Yes. Ooh, Windows Media Movie Maker magic there. This is good.
Warmer. Get students talking on the theme of the lesson.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Hello everyone, how are you today?
Oh, he's got stuff in the background.
What's my job?
You're a teacher.
Why do you think so? Because we're
Because you're sharp.
That's good, you're learning, that's good. Okay, it's not my first job, I've had a lot of other jobs actually. Actually, I've got a list here of jobs. Some of them I really have done, and some of them I haven't done.
Ooh.
In case you can't
Is
see
he
it,
chesting?
teacher, pizza chef, salesman, doctor, and nursery nurse. So I want you to try and speak with me now as a group and just tell me which ones you think really were my jobs and which ones are not my job.
Oh, two truths and a lie.
Thank you, I've never worked as a doctor, that's correct. Yes?
Nursery nurse?
I've never worked as a nursery nurse, that is correct.
I can see you as a salesman.
Well, I have worked as a salesman.
I don't think you were a pizza chef.
Pardon?
I don't think you were a pizza chef.
In fact, I have worked as a pizza chef. Okay, so this is what I would like you to do. Take a piece of paper, write down a few jobs that you have done and a few jobs you haven't done, and then speak with your partner. Just show your partner like that, and then partner, you should say if you think she has done the job or she hasn't done the job, just for a few minutes. So, is everyone going to write a list?
Yes.
Okay. Is it just going to be jobs you have done?
No.
Okay. And what will you do when your partner shows you their list?
Yes, which
Yes.
ones they've done.
Okay, that's great. I'll start you off when I can see everyone's got the list, but you can plan it now.
They seem to have a very high.
I like it.
They seem to have a very high level of comprehension, this class, I have to say.
Yeah.
Because I didn't particularly like his instructions,
Mhm.
but they didn't have any problem picking up with it. And then I'm sort of thinking, I wonder where this is going to go in terms of the level of language, because I'm going to kind of preempt a possible criticism here. One of the criticisms of PPP that was made, again, it's not really a criticism of the structure, but it's a criticism that happens in many PPP classes, especially OBS classes, is that you can under-aim.
Under-aim?
I mean, you don't challenge the students.
All right.
So basically, you teach them something that they basically already know, with like just a little bit tagged on, and so the students are not really being challenged that much. And this was the thing that sort of led to the Scrivener. I think it was Scrivener Harmer, or maybe Scrivener Underhill. I can't remember, but it was two of the sort of big names anyway. Got together and they came up with something called demand high, which was the idea that too many classes that they were seeing in OBS were not really challenging students. They were because everyone wants to obtain their language right. If it's like the big thing on a lesson OBS is your lesson aim needs to be achieved. So if at the end of the lesson you can't prove that the students can do the thing that you said you're going to teach them, then that used to be considered an automatic fail. I don't know if that's still the way it works in sort of the CELTA and everything. And because of that, all of the classes they'd see would always play it safe, you know? And I'm just wondering, because this activity seems like an upper intermediate activity, but the comprehension level of the students seems to be more sort of advanced by the way that he's talking, in my opinion.
I mean, he said it's a warmer, and for me, a warmer is basically, we're looking at engage. So we're looking to get someone thinking in the realm of the topic, the theme of the class, which is jobs, and to do it in a way that's fun and gets the person stimulated. And an activity like two truths and a lie, which this is basically is. I think that works well for that. And it doesn't state on the video the level, so I'll give them a pass for the moment as to what we're actually going to get into in regards to teaching. That's going to come later down the route. But I like that he demoed the activity. I like the choice of activity. I like that he's done some ICQs, which we rarely see, to be honest. How many React videos have we done of in class?
I mean, on YouTube we rarely see it. But I think in a proper obs you would expect to see them. And I agree. His ICQs were all right.
Well, just the fact that he's attempted and done them, and
and the students reacted in a way which indicates that they're used to getting ICQs. You can tell that, because when you first do ICQs with students, they mess them up. But as you establish a classroom culture of doing ICQs, then they start to respond like that in that way. So it's clear that this is part of his classroom culture.
I think if you're out there, you should use ICQs in everyday life. As a parent, ICQs is something that I do all the time. I think I annoy Fanny with it as well.
So Fanny, are you cooking dinner or not cooking dinner? That's right. You're cooking dinner. Are you looking after the kids tonight or no? That's right. You're looking after them.
These impressions are getting a little too close to home. They're getting a little too close to home.
Hi, Fanny.
Okay.
Work. Right. So I just had another comment.
Oh yeah, sorry.
It's not a criticism. It's kind of a general comment about the kind of teacher. You notice how teachers, especially communicative language teachers, and I'm going to say we because I do it sometimes as well. We sort of have this like I don't even know how to put it, like this kind of like physiology that we get into, and he very much did it. And it's kind of like you make yourself kind of small. Did you see him in his chair? He was kind of like down. And the way that they talk as well is like, what's my job? What's my job?
Do you know what I think that is? Because I've thought about this. I think it's, as a teacher, it's a place of power and authority. So if you ask a question, it's almost like it feels like a demand, because it feels stressful for students, because they're like, I don't know, and this person of authority is asking me. And like the whole culture of education, maybe less now, but in the past was, you're put on the spot, and if you don't answer, then you get slapped across the face. Like that. But so I kind of feel like one of the reactions in the ELT space is that teachers that are very aware of their position kind of like try to make themselves appear less authoritative, or kind of trying to remove that by kind of like shrinking down a little bit. Because I've done it. Or another thing that I found that I do is self-deprecation. Play up a little bit of a fool, especially with kids, just to kind of like break that kind of stigma of being this teacher is always right kind of, you can't talk openly and honestly with a teacher.
Right. So I absolutely think that's what it is, and that is also the reason why community of language teachers are often sitting down rather than standing up. It's not just comfort of the teacher, it's to get more towards that person-to-person Adrian Underhill thing rather than teacher to student.
Yeah.
So you're trying to remove the authority barrier. Now, there's an interesting thing about that, because there is a balance, and you do at least have to be able to flip. And I don't want to derail, so we're not going to go into the full anecdote here, but there was a fight in my classroom 2 weeks ago.
Really?
Which involved someone getting pushed through a table and then picking up a chair, raising it above his head, ready to throw it at the person who just pushed him.
Whoa.
And I think the only reason that he didn't throw that chair was that by that time I was standing in the way, and he kind of thought better of throwing a chair at the teacher's head. Right. He had it ready though. He had it ready, and he still threw it. He just kind of threw it on the floor, and it just bounced kind of harmlessly on the floor.
Yeah.
Now, to give a bit of context for the viewers, I'm teaching primarily asylum seekers at the moment, so it's a tense environment, and I'm not going to give any more details about that right now, but I'm just saying that there is a time and a place for the authorities to come into play. And as teachers, we do have a duty of care, especially.
Yeah,
and
especially with
authority,
kids.
Absolutely. Yeah, but not just with kids. These weren't kids.
Oh, really?
These were both 19 plus.
Okay.
Students. Yeah, so it's not just with kids. And we have to use that authority. So I'm going to react a little bit. I'm pushing back a little bit against that thing. I love the person-to-person thing. I think it's critical, but I don't think we should ever believe that we're just another student, because we're not. Right, and don't get too far into that mindset. Anyway, that's all I want to say about that for now. We'll kind of bookmark that. I think we could have a discussion about that at another point.
Yeah, on maybe one of our episodes of Crumbs on the Sheets. That's where we kind of focus more broadly on the ELT space. But yeah, should we jump back in?
We've got George Lucas at the back there.
Hey, are you ready? I'm gonna need a few. So
Misa director.
and just start together if you think he's done that job or she's done that job.
Director I am. Filmmaker are you?
Who's like the Spanish version? It's Jorge Lucas.
I love it. I'd love a Spanish Star Wars. See,
No,
look
again,
how well they're kind of doing with this. They're following. They're doing it exactly. They're into it, and I think it can lend to a lot of fun and a lot of kind of spicy debates. You get to know your other student as well, your partner as well, which builds community. I like it.
I was just about to say, from the way that they're doing this, it looks to me like this is very similar to activities like this they've done before, because they're holding their sheets even in a certain way, and I think he's trained them to do that. Because they're both, if you look at the previous student and this student, they're both doing it exactly the same kind of way, which is not necessarily what students would naturally do. Because if you don't instruct them to do that, then they'll do other things, like they'll swap books. It's something that they'll do sometimes. That they do all kinds of stuff, but they seem to be doing regularly the same thing, which would indicate to me this is also classroom culture. That he's done this kind of activity where they write something down, show it to the other student, and then ask questions about it.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Classroom culture.
Oh my god, you make me really
I love that sound.
Okay. Let me
I noticed the students have got desk chairs. I like that. That's just a comment on the institution.
Oh, no, I didn't notice that.
You rarely see that that the students have got office chairs. So they've got swivelly, comfy chairs.
Oh,
Yeah, it's nice, isn't
schmancy.
it?
got you there.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So I'll just come to one or two groups to hear what
Didn't get silence before giving instructions. Hey, I have fallen foul to that as well, but I never do anymore. I will not start giving instructions until the class is silent, and I'll stand there. And what tends to happen is the students will self-regulate.
Yeah.
If someone's still nattering away, then the students who are waiting get annoyed and they say, "Hey," and if not, you just say their name and they'll shut up. But yeah,
pull
that
down
is
your pants.
That's 100% habitual to me now. I will not start speaking to the class until everyone is silent and looking at me. And it's a really good thing to establish. So there's some advice, and as I said, I found that out in an OBS, or found it out. I mean, in an OBS where I'd given loads of instructions like he's just done now, where people were still talking and doing other stuff, and I got that feedback, and then from then made it a habit, and I have to say it's a very good thing to do. Don't give instructions, don't speak to your class until they're silent and looking at you.
Yeah.
So, how about this pair? Which jobs has he done? Which jobs has he not done?
So he has been a traffic counter.
Traffic counter. Click, click, click on the cards.
Yeah.
Okay.
He has been a stamp licker. He has not been a toad handler. And he has been a copy sub-journalist.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Toad handler.
Brilliant! Like that guy has come up with some really creative ideas.
Toad handler.
I would have thrown some praise his way for that, because you know I do see it as my job to encourage creativity in students, and you tend to find creativity is few and far between because of institutional education drilling it out of people by stigmatizing mistakes. So
Well, it could be as well that, you know, all of these job titles have been translated from his native language, and they're actually quite rude. You know, like maybe toad handler is the English equivalent of fluffer or something like that, and you know, like this is passing over the teacher's head.
I don't necessarily think that's the case. I mean, look this guy is not. He's not.
He looks like a toad handler.
Much.
Oh.
Feedback continues,
That was a
and
cut
then
on the video.
that was from the Spanish George Lucas. That was a cut.
So now we're going to go on to the presentation. Present
Mhm.
vocabulary according to these steps: elicit, model, drill, concept check, write and highlight phonology. Interesting.
I would have thought the concept check would come like after elicit or a little bit further down. So where
Yeah,
they,
I definitely think so.
yeah, where they whatever is that language point is, that it's, you know, checked, that it's defined before going
Well,
on to
actually-
modelling and drilling. But
Yeah, I mean, for me, model and drill would be part of practice, or at least at the start of practice, if not at the end of practice, just before production. It depends what practice you're doing, whether your practice is spoken practice or written practice. You know,
I disagree. I think this is kind of like my idea of presentation. The practice would be that, you know, they have the model, they've drilled. Oh, I suppose I see what you mean. So, you know, like if they're doing drills, is that practice? And yes, it's practice of the new language, but it's not practice for me in terms of utilizing that language like between students or for communication. It's just practicing, you know, like the structure. But yeah.
Well, you know, the reason why my drills tend to be closer to to production stage
Mhm.
is that I want to get as much transference as possible between the pronunciation drill, which is
Mhm.
always authentic pronunciation, into the production stage.
Mhm.
And it's my feeling that if you do a drill really early on, by the time they get to production, it's a distant memory. And they're not necessarily going to kind of use those drilled forms. Whereas if you drill some especially useful language just before your production stage, it's kind of fresh, you know. Imagine you kind of
I can
you
see
kind of
that.
say to them you say to them a few times, "What are you going to do tomorrow, everyone? What are you going to do tomorrow? What are you
Yeah,
gonna do
because
tomorrow?
you
What
kind
are you gonna
of,
do tomorrow?
if you're
To the
doing it,
partner, what are you going to do tomorrow?
if
What are
you're
you gonna
doing
do
it all, if you're front loading it, then you're kind of giving them two kind of things that they have to think and worry about getting correct. You've got the structure, the actual words, and then you've got the way that you say those words. So, I think your way is probably better and smarter because they would just have to solely focus on having the structure, the words, what have you, correct, and then if they're off with pronunciation of that, you can go over it. You can write and highlight the phonology and drill that once they're a little bit more comfortable. Yeah.
Well, it's also my feeling that the kind of practice that you do kind of initially can be more intellectual. You have to think about it. You get the form right.
Yeah.
But then as you move towards your presentation stage, you want to do the stuff that's more, it's more, I don't know, kinesthetic. It's more like, it's more of a skill than like an intellectualization. So the kind of intellectual practice for me comes first, and then the skill-based practice comes just before production. And this would be the equivalent to, for example, if you're in martial arts, you kind of show someone how to throw the right punch or whatever. Let's say boxing, because that's a proper one, right?
Yeah.
You show someone, you demo how to make a right punch, and then immediately you go into like practicing that.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 right? And it's not like people are not thinking about it. That's not how you kind of, you get pronunciation, is it? It's not.
Yeah.
It's not that you have to like logically think, oh, is it gonna or going to? That's not really what we want. What we want is we want it to just come out like a phrase.
Yeah.
What you're gonna do tomorrow? What you're gonna do tomorrow? So yeah, I don't know. That's just my take. I don't think it's the only way of doing it, but that's what I would say. But one of the things I do find very interesting about this is that there's a focus on phonology, which is showing this to be kind of the more modern take on PPP, isn't it? Because we've got, modern take, sort of post-90s,
Yeah.
where phonology sort of did become highlighted. We've even got write and highlight phonology, so that'll be interesting. And I guess we'll carry on.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're
I'm
welcome.
going to teach you some more words connected with jobs now. Do you know what this man is doing? What's his job?
Okay. Chester.
Okay, what does Neil Armstrong do?
He's an astronaut.
Yeah. Listen, astronaut. Say it together. Astronaut.
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 Can you use it? Astronaut. Good.
Astronaut.
Good. Astronaut. Good. Okay. So, does an astronaut fly a normal plane, or does he go into space?
He goes to space.
In space, do you need your normal clothes or a special suit?
Special suit.
Okay, that's good. This is how you write the word. Astronaut. 3 syllables. Where's the stress?
No.
The beginning, yes. Astronaut. Astronaut. Good. Okay. Now, can you see what this lady's doing?
Teller.
Cashier, teller. I'm thinking of a word beginning.
Yeah, so I'm definitely edging towards my initial.
Yeah. What job is this? Cashier, teller, bank worker? No. That's not the specific arbitrary word that I have in mind.
Well, it's also just, one of your students just produced like off the cuff toad handler.
Yeah, and
And
they're
now
like
we're teaching them
astronaut. Yeah.
and also writing a very dodgy looking O on the board there. Sorry, sir. I mean, I do that all the time. My handwriting's awful.
I kind of want to spin on because
Yeah.
I want to see if this is actually it. Because if this is actually it, I'm in total agreement with you.
Well, he's gone on. He's bordered the sentence stress there with shop assistant.
Yeah.
Assistant. Yeah, I'm not too keen on putting the stress above a consonant sound. I think I would always put the stress on a vowel. So I think that stress that he's put there on assistant, that should actually be over the I. Actually, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So he's still doing that. Let's carry on a little bit. Then he does farmer. Yes, there's definite under-aiming here, I think, in terms of the vocabulary for these students.
It's going on for so long. I mean, they know. Do you know? Like, come on. You know, what does a doctor do? That was at the very beginning of the class. They know what a doctor does. They were able to assess him and say that he wasn't a doctor. So is he doing concept checking for a vocabulary that I would say obviously no. And this isn't really phonology as well, because it's just, you know, sentence, word stress.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's word stress and syllables. And yeah, I think because that is actually the end of the presentation section.
Really?
So for me, that's not good presentation, because he's not presenting the language in a strong context.
And he's not doing it within a structure either.
He's just simply saying jobs, and these are some jobs. He's underrating as well. But
Massively.
you know, we want to see, like, how would people actually use those words? You know, that when we talk about context, we want to either hear that language or see it actually in something, in a text, in an audio, not just sort of bordered with a picture.
Mm-hmm.
And it also strikes me that this was such a teacher-centric presentation section.
Yeah.
When he could have just given this as a worksheet to the students after demoing the first one, and said, okay, you match the rest and write the sentence stress.
Yeah.
Because I think these students would be easily capable of doing that.
Yeah. I would even go as to say that you've set up this game before, the two truths and a lie. You know, what I thought was going to happen. This is what I thought was going to happen. I thought what was going to happen was he's going to do two truths and a lie. He's probably going to introduce some jobs. The higher vocabulary might come from, you know, the actions that they do in the jobs that often could be quite specific. You know, like if you're a farmer, the farmer cultivates the field or something like that.
Yeah.
I thought maybe something like that. And when he would introduce the actual jobs or something, there might be some kind of like quick activity where they would say, he would give them a structure that he can use with that game, because he didn't give them a structure that they use with the warmer. So he could be like, he is not a doctor, but he is a farmer, isn't he? I don't know. Just off the top of my head.
I know where you're going,
Yeah.
Neil. You're kind of getting into that thing where it's like, one student says like, he cultivates, he works in a field, he works with animals, and the other student says like, is it a farmer? And you go, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, something like that. You know, like
Yeah.
guess who, but you know, like you've got a farmer.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
and
you've got the
I
structure.
also want to add that exact activity that I just described,
Mhm.
I did with my entry 1 students about a month ago. Now, entry 1, so
Mhm.
you know, is kind of a good A1.
Yeah.
I did that activity where you kind of say, oh, he wears a uniform, he like saves people from fire, and then they say fireman.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I am concerned about where this is going to go. Are we ready to see
Oh,
what the
how?
practice
Yeah,
is?
I'm wondering what the practice is going to be, because how do you practice these words?
Interesting that his sort of
Because he's not introduced the structure to practice these words with.
well, presumably they're just going to do the same thing as what he did, but on their own. But yeah, I mean, in some ways, actually, his presentation seemed like a practice stage, except he was doing it as with the whole class,
Yeah,
rather than
yeah.
it wasn't really a presentation. Okay, let's see.
Words that we learn together, you're now going to use them in an activity. And when you do this paper,
Really?
and you need to read a sentence like this one. A something is a person who goes into space. And you need to remember, or from your notes, what is the correct answer. So what is the correct answer?
Astronauts.
Yeah, good, astronaut. So,
Oh, this is horribly under-aiming, isn't it?
It's awful. And yeah, I don't. We skipped a lot of the presentation, so I don't know if he covered if it's at or an, but you know.
Yeah, but these students seem like the kind of students that are going to know anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could have checked, but I don't know. I don't think there's any needs. This feedback.
what do you have for number 6?
A doctor is a person half sick before to get better.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, I hate that way of doing feedback as well. just say, right, compare with a partner, and then put the answers on the board, and then say, right. Any questions? Well, any questions is a bad question.
Now I'm interested what they're going to do for production.
Yeah, so practice stage also kind of not brilliant. Right, freer practice. The second practice offers more choice to the students. There's not always one right answer. I don't think that's a good definition. I haven't really liked any of their definitions of these stages.
So also, if you're the people that are watching or listening to this, we do say PPP, but also practice can be known as controlled practice, and production can also be known as freer practice. Often they're used interchangeably, but I have my own kind of thoughts on that. But
yeah, well, sometimes it's seen as 4 stages, and that's actually what he's doing. So there is actually a production stage as well. So it's a 4-stage process. So he's got freer practice there, offers students more choice. I think the traditional way I used to see it, like 12 years ago when I did my CELTA, was that controlled practice was sort of the written one, and then freer practice was the spoken one. But it was still controlled practice in the way that if students kind of screwed up pronunciation, then I would interrupt them on that activity. So I'm treating it as a like on-the-spot correction. For me, is still there with a spoken controlled practice activity, but then in production, no on-the-spot correction. Not unless it's critical. Not unless there's a critical error based on the target language. Other than that, I won't interrupt in in the production stage. But anyway, okay, freer practice. Let's see what we got.
As well. For example, is anyone in your family an astronaut? Is anyone in your family an astronaut? Yes. Yes,
I
really?
mean, the language in those questions is actually pretty good.
yeah,
Right? I don't know. It's probably like lower upper intermediate or intermediate, right? Would you like to be is anyone in your family and that would be more, that I think is more appropriate for these students. But the fact that the target language is just like farmer. It's so weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
I
mean,
understand
maybe
it.
it's just
I
playing
feel
safe.
like he's probably constrained by the materials, and that this is what he's got to cover.
I'm sure. It might be his school.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, okay. That's
Throw in
fine.
a lifeline.
That's amazing. Okay, ask me a question. Choose any question from the list. And what are you going to put in here? Yeah, one of the 8 words that we learned today, you put in here. You can choose. So
Like, one of the 8 words that we learned today, that is much more advanced vocabulary than any of the 8 words that they've learned today.
Yeah, and
So
you know,
he's
like
just
one
spoke
of
to them
these
in a way
sentences, he's
which is,
gone
like,
over
way more advanced.
the phonology, the stress, the intonation, because that would be something that would be better for them at this level. It
Yeah,
seems.
I think so. Yeah. So let's, okay, spin on. I don't need to see his demo. Okay, and we've had no movement in the class, so the students have worked in the same pair groups for the whole class so far.
That's a good point.
It's not a good idea to do that, in my opinion. And teachers of all experience levels get stuck into that.
Yeah.
In the institution where I am now, it's definitely the go-to. And when I came in and immediately started moving students around, there was a lot of resistance and groaning. But you just barrel through that, and after a couple of classes, they become so quick at it. You do your groups 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, all the ones, all the twos, all the threes, all the fours, and they'll move in like less than a minute.
Yeah.
So you just if you get resistance when you're moving students, it's just because they're not used to it. And once you do it a bit, and they realise the benefits of communicative language teaching and speaking to someone who's not the person that they already know everything about, then they'll get onto it.
Okay, let me jump there. Let me just hear one or two. Let me hear one or two things your partner told you.
They're still talking.
Can you remember something your partner told you?
I think one of the interesting things there about his so-called freer practice is, I mean, the students seem to treat it more or less like a production task. And I don't know if he actually did any there, but I didn't actually see him doing any correction. In fact,
I think he kind of cut away.
The only time we see him sort of monitoring here at the start, and then it just shows the students talking, and then it cuts away from the activity. So for me, the purpose of a so-called freer practice would be that he would be correcting, offering some correction. Now, there's two possibilities here. One, the students didn't make any mistakes, which I think is likely because the target language is too easy. The other one is that the students made mistakes, but because they were kind of just treating it as a production activity anyway, they were kind of going into rapport and having conversations and stuff, then, he just kind of kicked back. And this is also one of the reasons why I think a lot of teachers, and particularly less experienced teachers, but teachers in general, kind of prefer the advanced classes, because if you don't want to do a lot of work, you don't have to. You just throw out some questions and off they go. And you kind of kick back and let them talk to each other and sort of convince yourself that that's beneficial, which it is, but...
But they can do that outside of class. That's the problem, and that's. I think the students in this class and the teacher would finish this class and go, "Yeah, that went well. We learnt some new vocabulary. We communicated. We talked in English. We used that vocabulary. What's wrong with that? Like, is it new vocabulary?" Is it? Have you actually learned anything? Really? Did you know that vocabulary before? I mean,
we're gonna have to do a class on demand hire. We're gonna have to do a podcast on demand hire.
Yeah, we are gonna have to.
That is exactly what they were talking about. What Scrivener was going on about when he mentioned he does a whole. There's a video, an hour lecture that he gives on the idea of demand high. And on YouTube, and it's exactly what he's talking about.
Because they're just basically just practicing their level right now.
It's just fluency-based practice, and nothing else. Yeah. And fluency-based practice is mega important, but for the price of a classroom and a teacher, most of the time, fluency-based practice is not what students are paying for.
God, that's what conversation clubs are for. Could we spin this on to production at least? Let's see what that is. Yeah, Prof Rich Conversation Clubs. Definitely check that out. ProfRich.com.
If you're a language learner. Right, so we're going on to production.
Just in general, he's good for a chat, bit of banter.
Production.
Okay.
The final activity, fluency focused, more fluency focused, providing students with a clear forum in which the target language is relevant and will hopefully be used.
Hopefully?
Well, that is that. No,
Hopefully.
that is the thing, though. That is the thing. That is the kind of CLT idea that you don't force the students to use the language in production. You just sort of give them something to do, and hopefully they'll use it. But it's a weird way of saying it, isn't it? Yeah. But that is the rationale.
All right,
It's
all
the
right.
idea that now they're on their own, and you might do delayed error correction. So a good bit of delayed error correction you could do is make a note when your students say something, but don't use the target language. And then the error correction can be you put it on the board and you say, "Hey, did we learn anything from class today that could make this better?" You know,
God.
and that will be delayed error correction. You won't
Yeah.
interrupt them during the production. But it's not really applicable with this language because it's so simple. It's just a bunch of nouns. Well,
What
if
is
you were
this?
doing, like,
What is the
phrasings,
production
then-
though? I don't really see what
Okay, well,
what
let's
he's
see.
gonna do with this.
Yeah.
Oh, oh.
Okay. Now imagine you're a student, you finished your studies, and your mum says to you, "I want you to go to the job fair."
What is a
I
job
want you
fair?
to go- Okay. What happens at a job fair?
Okay.
You have several jobs, and then you look and see which one suits you best, your personality and things you're willing to do. You get more details
Exactly. Yeah.
God damn. Astronaut, farmer.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
Suits you. What job suits you? Suits you, sir.
And
What
and
the
he asked
hell?
quite a complicated question. He's like, what happens at a job fair? I mean, you have to give quite a fancy answer to that. But, you know, she had no problem. And it doesn't seem like anyone in this class would have a problem.
Ah, jeez.
We don't need to labour the point, do we? I mean, it's the target language was too easy.
Find out about a job. Okay, so imagine you go to the job fair, you look around everywhere, and you come back and you speak to your mum or your dad. Snelle, you're my son, and I'm going to ask you what jobs you saw and what jobs you think you like.
This is quite
Well, yeah. What's going
fancy hypothetical
on?
situation, isn't it? So you go to the job fair, you look at some jobs, you come back, see your parents, and, I'm your dad, and I'm going to ask you about video.
Which jobs you think you don't like. And again, you can use the 8 words we learned today and
We ask you about which jobs you think you like and which jobs you think you don't like.
words for jobs if you know them. So astronaut, farmer.
Use the words for the jobs if you think you know them. Oh, it's almost patronising at this point.
and all those jobs. So Nelly, how was the job fair? Tell me, did you see some jobs you like there?
Yes.
Which ones?
I would like to be a dentist.
Really, why?
I would like to be.
Inflicts pain.
Okay. It's
good.
It's a great career. I'll see you more as an astronaut.
I don't really like the space.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you been there before?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, is this a real life or are you going to imagine something? Are you going to
No, you're really his dad. Sorry, I'm getting a bit negative about it. now.
Go for to your partner. Are you at the job fair or have you come back from the job fair? One of you needs to be a parent, one of you needs to be a recent graduate. Okay? After a few minutes, change over so both people do both jobs, okay? You've got about 5 minutes for this.
Her work, same groups. Great bunch of students who would probably run with any ball that you throw at them.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god, I had this one guy.
I mean, there's an interesting. I don't know if you. Let's just because I've got some sort of final thought type things, I guess.
Okay.
Should we move on and see his feedback, or?
Yeah, let's see that, and then we can wrap it up.
Did they find out something interesting, or were you disappointed? How'd you feel?
I was disappointed.
Really? Why?
My son has no ambition.
After everything you've taught
After
him?
everything I've taught him.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's not too late. Some people are like developers. Someone else? Disappointed anyone, or were you proud? Disturbed? What's that?
That was a very strange profession. That was something wanted to pursue.
Perhaps should we say it right now? Or what? Maybe not.
Who knows?
We'll talk
Toad
to you
handler.
later. Which words did you use and which words did you hear? Words for jobs. Chef?
No, I think I can happily say that there's not going to be anything useful coming out of this.
Yeah, should we jump out?
I think there's one of the things that occurs to me here is that you can't judge the effectiveness of a teacher merely by the engagement of the students. And I say that well aware that student engagement is the most important thing in a classroom.
Yeah.
I fully accept that. I think it's the best thing to focus on. But you know, sometimes you just got a good group of students, and you look at this group and you're like, that's a good group of students. Their English is good. They're quite excited to speak to each other. I'm inclined to say that what this is a bunch of people who've come on an English learning holiday to the UK, because you've got a mixed group of nationalities. So I think they don't know each other that well. So they're quite motivated to kind of get to know each other and to talk to each other and to have fun. And their English is good. So you can kind of give them a ball to run with, and they'll run with it and they'll go with it. And because of that, anything you give them, they're going to make something of it. You know, they're getting into those role plays, they're having fun, you know. So from that perspective, you know, I think this teacher, I think he's seeing that and going, yeah, my lesson, it's good, because look at the students, they're talking and they're engaged. But you do have to consider to me, this group looks like they would be like that with basically anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have to ask other questions, right? I know, I agree, student engagement is paramount, but there's other things to ask. And this is where those criticisms like demand high and so on come in, right? So are they being challenged? I think from my perspective, the students are not at all being challenged. I think they're finding this kind of fun, but mega easy. And I think the class is seriously lacking in dynamics. As I said, there was no movement. Like you've got to move your students around. They should not be sat in the same place for the whole class. There's got to be something, even if it's just one activity where everyone gets up and speaks to someone else. You know, just something to give it a bit of, you know, so you're just not sitting there speaking to the same person for the whole class. Give them some. You want to evoke emotion. You want that effective depth of communication. So you want to create an experience that's as less stale as possible, basically. So that would be a criticism of it. We've already spoke about the target language being too low. I didn't like the presentation. I thought, especially for this level, but I would argue at all levels, that is a weak way of presenting language. And it's not that people don't do it. I mean, it's in English file as well. You know, you do a bit of a warmer, and then you flick to the back of the book and you have one of those vocabulary spreads, and you just go through and match vocabulary, right? And they're actually quite good worksheets. They are good. I mean, I use them, but it's a weak way of presenting vocabulary, really, because it's not in context. It's just a thematic vocabulary, a sort of matching or vocabulary worksheet. And it's definitely not as useful as, you know, a listening and then a tape script and then looking at the tape script and, you know, using that language in context, seeing how do people use this. So then you get to see the collocations as well. What is it collocates with those words? Because how are they used? Mm-hmm. You know, and with language so simple like this, there's not really much to be said about that anyway.
Oh, that's what they should be emphasizing more. I could completely agree. And what I would say was, I think your assessment that they're probably, these are probably, those students are there for a holiday, or, like it's, I don't know, maybe part of some add-on for some course or something like that. And, like this is their kind of, I'm learning English. But the pushback on that is, if this is going to be a private class, and you want students to come, and you want them to pay money, and you want them to leave and leave good reviews and be happy. And these students in that class, I'm sure, will have left that class and gone, yeah, I feel like I've learned something, and this was a great experience. They'll go online and tell their friends to come and sign up with this course, and everyone's going to be happy. But I don't think that they've learned. And it only takes a couple of students to go, hold on a second, hold on. I know astronaut, I know farmer. What are we doing? And a majority of students are just going to be caught up in the feelings, and they'll be happy. But then imagine if you're doing this, and you're doing this level of class for your level, you're always hitting low there, then, and you're trying to pass an exam or IELTS or Cambridge or something like that, then you're not going to because you're not being challenged whatsoever. You're not learning anything new. You're just paying for a conversation club, an exorbitant amount of money for a conversation club.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much what I was saying.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're saying. I'm just repeating it because it sounded smart.
There's a huge.
It happens a lot, though.
There's a gulf between the language that he was actually using for his feedback, particularly, and his instructions, and even the kind of tertiary language used in his practice task and production task, actually, was massively more advanced than the target language of the class. So, he was saying stuff like, imagine you went to a job fair and then you came back home, and then imagine that your dad asks you this.
It slowly, as the class started and then went towards the end, it kind of like, it was like unveiling, like he just kind of like went, yeah, screw trying to grade my language. I'm just, like, okay.
Well, no.
If
actually,
you would like.
No. I actually think he was. I actually think his language was graded correctly at that point. That's the point. His target language was so low.
Oh right.
That it didn't make any sense. I think when he was talking to them there, I actually think his language was graded correctly, because I think those students understood what he was saying perfectly. No one seemed to have an issue with the fact he was suddenly talking about this hypothetical where one person plays their dad and the other one plays a. It just indicates that you shouldn't be learning the names of jobs as your target language at that level. It should have been something much more, like you were talking about, things like cultivate. I mean, that's what we should have been getting into, really. Some really specific. To be honest, I prefer to focus on functional language rather than those kind of words. So, target language involving talking about jobs. So questions, let's think about this job fair, the kind of natural questions that someone would ask at a job fair. So, do you see anything that you particularly like? I wasn't so keen on, so advanced language for giving opinions, I think.
I think it would depend on what the class is. If it's just a communication class, a standard class, I would go with what you would say. But if it was something that was, like IELTS or some exam based, where like that language could also be used within a text, and you kind of need to know subtle differences, when you're reading texts about farming or something, then I would have more advanced vocabulary connected to those words. But I think what would be better at this point would be to say what we would do different with that class. Now, I'm going to say that he's been shackled with that vocabulary I'm gonna give him a pass and say he's been shackled with that vocabulary, but he's got this advanced class. What do you do? For me, it would be the case of the presentation side. I'd probably still do that warmer, to be honest, and do the presentation, but the presentation would be so much smaller, so much shorter, so much smaller. Schmaller? Am I Dutch? And it would be, I would maybe keep the syllables, the stress, what have you, but I would put it with connotations or within a structure, and we can practice it that way. I'd probably even elicit I don't know, something, go with more connected language. I'm not even sure I would do that much of a practice. The practice would be more of like setting up my production, which would be the giant portion of my class. Maybe keep that job fair, or have them do presentations on the job. Like if you want to be an astronaut, like they're at the job fair and everyone gets set up in a booth, and this is the booth for if you want to be an astronaut, and people go around and you've got to pitch your job to them, and stuff like that. And then you can use all this vocabulary. You can get them questions. You can integrate functional language where it would be like, and what do you do in your job? What does your work day look like? That sort of thing. And that person can describe about their job. I don't know, something like that. But the whole focus would be, I've been shackled with language, a language point, vocabulary, grammar, whatever that is way lower than the level of the class. So I'm not really going to focus on that. I'll cover it, but the majority will be, what can I add to that to bring it to their level, to add that challenge, and how can I make it so when I'm doing that, it's focused more on the actual communication and fluency in production.
Very good. So here's what I would do.
Okay.
So start the class. Very first thing.
Take off your pants.
Very first thing in the class. I'll have pictures of jobs. More than that, more than 8, just loads of them, 16, on a sheet of paper, and then on the board we'll have a question, which was, would you like to be a ... Why not? Mm-hmm. And then I would say, this would be a warmer. Talk with a partner, ask about these different jobs, and sort of off you go. I'm not going to check if they know the words for the jobs or anything like that, because I know that they probably do. And if they don't, and someone says to me, hey Rich, how do you say this one? I'll say, don't worry about it, just skip that one. So then they'll get right into that. So what are they doing? They're asking, would you like to be a fireman? No. Why not? It's a lot of hard work, long hours, So, they're kind of giving their opinion on why they do or why they would or wouldn't like to be something. That's the start of the class. Then they will listen. They will listen to 8 natives, and I'd quite happily make the recordings myself. So 8 recordings.
Would you do accents?
No, but I'm getting to the stage where I might start doing that, because I've been playing with accents. But
okay.
I would just speak as naturally as possible.
Okay.
I mean, it'd be awesome if you had some other teachers and you could record them as well. But I do a lot of recordings myself, and students don't mind it. But yeah, you can do accents. I mean, I might move on to start doing accents, because I've been playing with it a bit. But anyway, Yorkshire, farmer. I don't think so. Anyway,
I'm triggered. Triggered.
No. So yeah. So, and what it would be 8 audios of just people answering, giving their reasons why. Mm-hmm. So you won't hear the question, and they won't say, "Oh, astronaut." They won't say the target language. They'll say like, "No, I wouldn't be too keen on that because, no, not farming. You're outside all day and it's long hours and, whatever, right?" So they wouldn't use the target language. They wouldn't use the jobs. but they'll give they'll use all this language for giving opinions about why they do and don't like it, and also words to describe the jobs. And that activity, the initial part of that activity will be students listening and matching them to the jobs, right? And they will be the words: astronaut, farmer, right? So that is my activity where I'm checking that they know that target language already, which I'm confident they do, right? So if there's a problem there where they don't get them, then I can dive into it and say, oh, astronaut, and I can show them a picture of an astronaut, and they've got context because they've got someone talking about wanting to be an astronaut. Oh, I'd love to go into space or whatever, right? So they've got the context of what an astronaut is. Right, then we're done with our shackles, okay, because that's done now. We've checked it, they've engaged in it. Now I can move on to what I really want to do, which is teach them language for giving opinions. And they've already been exposed to that because they had a go at the start themselves, realized that they've got some language for giving opinions, explaining why they do or would like to be something. But now they've got the audio of the native speakers giving their opinions. I wouldn't be too keen on space because I'd be out there, and right. And, so they've got those sections, that language. So that's when we'd start working with the language input that we've just heard, which is the natives doing that task. And we'd maybe, you'd have to identify in the tape script where people have given an opinion, and then put them in a table. Is it for giving a positive opinion or a negative opinion? And then maybe make a climb where it's like, this is when you really like something, this is when you really dislike it, and all the others go in the middle, right? And we have those phrases. Then we'd move on, and so that's our kind of teaching stage. Then we'd move on and do maybe a bit more practice. So maybe a kind of a practice where they have to use those phrases and write something that's true for them about something. Then we'd move on and do our pronunciation drill. So I wouldn't be so keen on that. Yeah. That sounds like my kind of thing. Right? That kind of pronunciation drill, bit of pair work on that. And then we go into the job fair. That's when we do the job fair. And the focus of the job fair is your dad comes to you and says, so what did you see at the job fair? Oh, I saw this stuff about being an astronaut. So do you want to be an astronaut? No, I'm not so keen on that. They get a chance to use my target language, which is for giving your opinion. Thank you.
10. Give you a 10. Yeah, so I think basically for those out there watching and listening, what you've got there is you've got two choices. You've got my choice, which is to be lazy, lean into the shackles of the language that you've got and kind of just go over that to death, but with less focus on learning it and more focus on practice and production. Or you have the
maverick choice.
The better choice.
Someone who I worked with said this the other day. I said something, and one of the other teachers was like, "Oh, well, why would you do it like that?" And then someone else spoke up and they said, "Because Rich thinks he's a maverick."
He doesn't think he is. He is a maverick.
Yeah. No, I'm not really. All I did is turned it into TBL. That's what I did.
Yeah.
So that was a task-based learning approach.
So I think your one would be the one that Harmer would do a chef's kiss to, and would be the one that facilitates the most amount of learning. But it's the most amount of work on the teacher as well.
I don't think it would be that much.
No.
The main.
If someone was starting off, maybe yes, but for your level, no.
The main work would be the audio, but you know how long it takes to make one of those audios? It's like 5 minutes, right? You can do it on your mobile phone. You hit record
in the bathroom,
right? And you've already got. All you'd need is your 8 target language points, and just decide whether you're going to dislike it or like it, and then just speak. Just teachers are creative. You just go for it, don't you?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be too keen on, you don't have to think about what language you're going to put into it, because you're a native, you'll use the language. Or even if you're a non-native, you're competent with the language, so you will use interesting language for your students. You don't need to.
I just feel like
synthetically
you're underestimating the laziness of the average person. I'm not saying teacher, I'm saying person.
I don't know.
But you
about
know,
that, man.
you are a
I mean, people
dedicated
spend-
educator.
People spend 20 minutes like fingering through New English file looking for worksheets to copy, when you could spend 5 minutes recording an audio. I'm not convinced that it's necessarily the lazier option. I think it's just that sometimes people just get a bit stuck in their ways, or they get worried about it. They're like, oh, but what if the language isn't right for the students? Da, 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 da. And it's true that when you first start doing something like that, and you just let the language come out rather than try to shovel in this synthetic target language. When you just let the language come out, it's true that first time when you go into the classroom and you use it, it's a bit nerve-wracking, and sometimes the students don't get it. And yeah, you have to deal with stuff like that. You're going outside of your comfort zone, aren't you? Using like a recording of you speaking. It's like, how's this going to go down? This could go horribly wrong, and sometimes it will. But you become more confident of working with that. And that is truly the way that I believe that language should be worked with, because it's authentic. And the more authentic the language is, the better. At all levels as well. At all levels. I think I said this last week, that, I had a student kind of, sort of early on in the course, because I come straight in and start throwing, I'm going to go to the park type stuff at them, straight at the start of the course, saying, no, I'm a beginner, so I want to say, I can't learn that. That's too advanced. I need to learn I am going to. And I'm like, no, that's not... I am going to isn't basic English. It's just not English. It's just not what people say. Okay, it's imaginary English. It's not basic English. So we start with I'm gonna go, which is easier anyway, because it's less words. It's less spoken words. I'm gonna go. So yeah, it's just a shift in mindset, isn't it? And it will go wrong sometimes. It's gone wrong for me, loads of times. But obviously, you work with it until you become comfortable with just working with authentic language. And then if you want to make an audio for students, just record on your phone and off you go, And the language that comes out when you speak, that's going to be your target language, and that's it.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
So
and I'm sure people that
put that in your pipe and smoke it.
By gum, lad, by gum, you got it. So,
is it 8 by the way?
If you are still with us, watching this, listening to this, you want to get more from this maverick, then remember to like, share, and subscribe. And also check out our website, eltunderthecovers.com, and please don't hesitate to contact us at eltunderthecovers@gmail.com if you want to be on the show, or you want us to observe your classes and give our feedback. And a quick shout out to Andrew, whose class this was. Please reach out, get involved with us. We'd happy to chat about this class. We don't know the full context, so we'd love to hear your thoughts.
This video looks old as well, right? It looks like 10 years old.
Yes, it is.
10 years ago, I didn't know anything about task-based learning. I started doing that. We spoke to Nicola Meldrum interview. It was back in 2017 when I started doing that stuff. So 10 years ago, you could watch one of my classes. It could be like this as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, Andrew, don't take offence, buddy, and by all means, come on. Sorry if I seem a bit harsh sometimes.
No, you're a maverick.
It's
It's expected. Okay, and see you all later. Remember to leave a comment. Ta-ra. If you're looking for more information from myself, you can go to teamteacherchina.com. We've got a whole bunch of materials, PowerPoints that you can use instantly in the classroom. We've got a Team Teacher China YouTube channel where we have videos teaching you how to use those materials. Team Teacher English, where we put those materials into a video form for self-study. And Team Teacher Baby, where I take my experience as a teacher and put that into parenting.
And go to youtube.com/Professor Rich to see some English teaching. You can catch me weekly live streams on Oxford Online English YouTube channel. Oh, and also you can do a YouTube search for POG Space UK, and you would get my alpha version of my new gaming channel, which actually just have some trial content on there at the moment. You can email us here at eltunderthecovers@gmail.com if you have anything you'd like to contribute to the show.
Smash that like button, share and subscribe.
And watch 100% of the video and don't click
Exactly.
off. Thank you.
Bye.